How about we get into these questions and we see where they take us, because I suspect that it's quite possible for them to sort of be expanded on in the answer as well. So we'll get these questions up. This is a question once again about plastics, and I had actually put this together. This is an amalgam from a number of people. So what are we doing to turn around rapidly growing problems of plastics? I think you've largely answered it, Matt. So if there's anything else you wanted to say, that's fine.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that we're facing a global plastic pollution crisis, and that requires a comprehensive and bold response. Plastic finds its way into landfill and litter, and with over 60% of the litter in our state consisting of plastic packaging. The plastic that is littered today will still exist in hundreds of years. If we don't get better at how we manage plastic now, we risk leaving an unwanted legacy for generations to come. We've already got one of the biggest litter reduction programs anywhere in the country, and certainly in the state's history, and that's the Return and Earn program. That's been a huge success. We've collected over 1 billion cans, bottles, and containers. That's 1 billion less cans, bottles, and containers that are ending up in landfill, ending up, worse still, in our parks, in our waterways, in our rivers. So that's a great step forward, but we've got a long way to go. Yes, we should be phasing out some problematic plastics. Yes, we should be focusing more on education and reuse and recycling. I want to tackle this as part of a strategic framework. That's exactly what we're doing. I've been focused on the climate change agenda, as many of your listeners will know. We've focused on many of the key issues in the environment and energy spaces, but this is one that is too big to ignore, and we'll be making some big announcements very soon, Greg.
Yeah, well, that's great. So thank you for that. And once again, I'll just acknowledge Favour Paladasamy from University of Newcastle, who you quote with that credit card line about 1 credit card per week of ingestion of plastic. And I guess the ingestion of plastic in a human sense, I guess it's very frightening. But when you imagine what it's doing to the rest of the environment, it's just incredibly concerning. So we'll just move on. In a statement to Parliament last year, you mentioned that coal ash would be included in the 20-year waste strategy. Once again, Matt, I acknowledge you've mentioned that tonight. The waste strategy discussion paper doesn't mention coal ash. Has the government been developing another strategy to facilitate coal ash reuse to reduce the 216 million tonnes of accumulated coal ash waste in New South Wales? And that is from the Hunter Community Environment Centre.
No, and can I acknowledge the great work that the Hunter Community Environment Centre does, and thank them for their engagement directly with me. Look, we're currently developing the 20-year waste strategy. It will set goals to reduce waste, increase recycling, and plan future infrastructure, and to also create new markets for recycled products. I mentioned in my opening remarks that Origin Energy is already looking to increase the reuse or the recycling of its coal ash from 35% to 85%. You know, the strategy that we're doing is considering ways to boost the circularity of materials and develop new and end markets and uses for priority materials, including coal ash. The options that we're looking at include boosting demand and using more recycled material in infrastructure projects, developing standards or certifications for recycled content with industry. Opportunities to facilitate innovation is going to be really important, and also fostering partnerships between industry and government to address information barriers. So we've consulted with business, industry, and community on the issues paper. We will continue to work closely with stakeholders as we develop that draft strategy. The draft strategy is scheduled for release early next year, and that will absolutely include a role for recycling of coal ash. Pardon me.
Oh. Okay, well, thank you for that, Matt. We'll move on to the next one. Are there any government grants available to individuals to support new initiatives and projects for further development of products to clean up chemical toxicity and greenhouse gas emissions? That's from Stephanie Canaway. That's a pretty big question.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. Look, obviously, I'm responsible for the Environmental Trust and the EPA. They offer a wide range of waste avoidance and improvement programs around chemical cleanup and environmental conservation grant monies. I I'd really encourage you to reach out directly to the department through Greg, or who can rep the concern directly to me. I'm happy to write back to you with formal pathways that you can pursue to get some of those grants. You might also be interested that the New South Wales grant and financing options available through the Innovation Concierge, which contains a useful funding roadmap to help navigate funding opportunities for innovators and entrepreneurs. And you might also be interested in both the CSIRO's ON program and Innovation Fund, which are pitched at innovating new solutions to issues and helping startups. So there may also be opportunities provided through the Commonwealth Government's grant programs as well. But what I'd say in the first instance, Greg, Stephanie, if you could write directly to Greg and outline what you're after, or maybe give me an idea of some specific initiatives that you're looking to undertake, I'll put you in touch with the right part of government and make sure that you're able to access the right grant that you're after.
Okay, thank you. So the next question. Given that there are uncontrolled stormwater discharges containing heavy metals flowing into Lake Macquarie from the Araring Power Station ash dam, would the Minister advise what steps he thinks would be appropriate to correct the situation to guarantee the citizens of Lake Macquarie that ongoing pollution of the lake will cease now and into the future? That's from Bruce McFarlane, who's from Wanji.
Good on you, Bruce. Thanks for the question. You may not be aware, but we've recently varied the EPA's licence for the Araring Power Station. We did that in July this year as part of the New South Wales Coal-Fired Power Station Review Project. Now, the Environmental Protection Licence nominates all known discharges from the power station, including the ash dam, and includes limit, monitoring and reporting conditions. So the EPA has also committed to undertake a more comprehensive review of surface and groundwater data on all 5 coal-fired power stations operating in our state. So if you or other members of the community have concerns about other unauthorised discharges, can you please report them to the EPA's environment line? The number for that, Greg, and maybe you could pass this on after, is 131 555. That's 131 555. So if there's a direct example or a concern that you have, can you please let me know so I can send our scientists and officials up there to investigate, because we want to make sure that we protect the environment and hold dodgy polluters fully to account.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Matt. We've actually had a recent study done by Paul Wynn, I think. It was from the Hunter Community Environment Centre, and I think they're both on. Joe and Paul are online with us tonight. So I think I'll be having some discussions with you or your staff further about truthing that, because obviously we do need to make sure that the heavy metal build up in the lake is dealt with, as Bruce said. Yes, now, but also into the future, that we're not just leaving a legacy for our children and grandchildren to deal with. So thank you for that, Minister. Next question. Robin. Good on you, Robin. When is the Awabba Conservation Area going to be formally gazetted? It has been waiting since 1972. So that's from Robin Charlton. It's a range of issues Robin's involved in, but this is, I think, probably be fair to say that this would be quite a passion of hers.
Well, can I just thank Robin for her amazing advocacy on behalf of our community for the environment. She's a bit of a legend. I understand that the Awabba Conservation Area was first mentioned in a document prepared by the National Trust, as Greg, you pointed out, in 1972. It was later identified in 2009, the Lower Hunter Regional Conservation Plan. And in early 2020, lands in the Awabba area were proposed to the National Parks and Wildlife Service as suitable for reservation in the National Park system, along with 85 other proposals. So, Robin, I wrote to every local MP, every council across New South Wales as part of my push to expand our national park estate. I've managed to set aside some funds to purchase private land, and I've instructed national parks to also negotiate with Crown lands and state forests to try and acquire areas that would enhance our national park estate. We had hundreds of applications and responses about land we could consider. We're going through a process at the moment, Robin, to identify what the best parcels of land are, given the finite resources that we have available to us. Rest assured, I'm looking very closely at the Awaba proposal, and we'll be having something to say about all those proposals very soon. Many of you know that I've said that I wanted to expand our national park estate by 200,000 hectares in the first 2 years in my tenure as the Minister for the Environment. I'm pleased to say that I've not only hit that target, I've exceeded that target in 1 year. So I'm going to make another announcement very soon about a further target. If you don't have a goal, then you'll never get there. So that's why we're setting some ambitious targets in the environment space, particularly in the national parks expansion space. And Robin, hopefully I'll have some news about Awaba in the not too distant future.
Yeah, thanks for that. I see Robin seems fairly happy about that. I noticed Kim Grierson too. I think you're pretty okay with that answer as well. So so thank you for that. Just there is something outside of your portfolio I do just want to touch on, Matt, if I can. And yeah, prima facie, it's an absolute environmental issue. Unfortunately, it doesn't fit nicely into your portfolios, and it's a legacy issue from mining. And I've got John Young here, JP Wise here. John is he's up there at Fassy Firm, been involved in range of issues around the mine up there around Newstand over the years. Sat on the Community Consultative Committee, and he's been working with a number of other people in his local community. He's been at the lead of it to try and get something done for LT Creek. So some years ago, we did a great remediation of Lake Macquarie. I don't think anybody would deny that it's a fantastic outcome that we got, but we didn't get to every nook and cranny, every bit. And LT Creek was really, I guess, overlooked. It was probably just was in a too hard basket at the time. There's been a number of proposals to remediate it. Needs dredging, Matt, as part of that, with some riparian work and things like that. Centennial are happy as long as someone else pays for it, because by the way, most of the damage was done while it was a state-owned asset.
Right.
And I think that's understandable. So John's been really frustrated, and we almost got it across the line for resources for regions. And we've got some council people on this in this town hall tonight as well. And council had submitted for it, but in the end, it just didn't quite meet the criteria. It got through all these hoops and then was culled at the last moment. So it's not in your portfolio, I understand that, but as the Minister for the Environment, I would imagine, I mean, you and I know where your portfolio sort of goes, but you've still got a strong role as an advocate. And I'm sort of looking to, I'm sure John is too, to see if we can get some assistance from yourself. I'll be happy to come and talk to you about it. John would be probably happy to talk to you as well. But council does have a plan. It's a good plan. And John, while you're there, I spoke to Tim Brown, who's at Lake Macquarie Council just last week. I think it was just late last week, and I actually asked him to go back and reprise it, have a look at it, see where we go ahead with it. But Matt, if I can get that to you as well, to see if you can be an advocate for that and give us some guidance as to how we can advance that, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely, Greg. Although it's not directly in my portfolio area, obviously there are some environmental issues surrounding it. I'm not across the issue, it's fair to say. So further information, I can get a brief, and then we can talk about next steps. Yeah,
well, no, as I say, prima facie, it's an environmental issue, but I understand it's not in yours. I think it's in the Deputy Premier's area, but we can certainly try and work on that. John, are you okay if I contact you outside of this? Yeah, I don't mind if you unmute. I don't know how we do it.
John? Now, here Am I there?
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean, just like Matt, like you said, I want to leave the place in a better condition too. And when I first moved here 33 years ago, I expressed my concerns about this creek. I was a young man of 37 then, and now I'm 70. And I just wonder how long it takes, you know, for these things to actually, especially, it's especially annoying because, as Greg says, this was a state-sponsored pollution. So it kind of is in your portfolio a little bit. It has a lot to do with the environment. Yeah. So I think the environment of this creek, when I speak to people who've been here all their lives, it was a wonderful sandy place where people used to swim and everything else. I mean, but now it's probably a metre or more of sediment in the bottom, basically all coming from the workings of Newstand coal mine when it was under the auspices of LCOM.
Yep. State mines. Yeah, thanks for that, John. Look, I'll talk to the Minister about that. And but as I say, the money, the approvals aren't in his area, but I would appreciate his advice. So, so thank you for that. I always feel like I talk to you, John, and yeah, Greg's just telling bullshit again, man. I mean, it's never been bullshit. Always tried to.
No, not at all.
No. I understand that, but I feel like that because you know we get so close and then it's fallen down at the last stage, and it's really frustrating. And I'm sure that's for most of us here who tonight have been involved in environmental matters. It is frustrating. You know, it's never easy. You know, we can sort of see that this is so logical. I mean, Matt, you must have this all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to go and deal with, you know, all those people, not just in cabinet, but in the party room. You know, so and there's significant differences of position and in interest between, say, the National Party or the different people, city members of government, as opposed to regional members. I do get it. But yeah, it's very, very frustrating. But if we can start getting some big goals kicked, as you've been describing, I think that we're going to leave the place an awful lot better, not just a little bit, an awful lot better if we can achieve what you've been talking about, Matt.
Well, Greg, there's no point occupying the crease. I'm here to try and hit some runs, and I'm not going to die wondering. So we've got an ambitious agenda. We want to make sure that we do protect our planet, but we want to do it in a way that enables our economy to continue to grow, that we protect jobs and in fact create new jobs. That's the opportunity that dealing with climate change responsibly brings. So your community up there in Lake Macquarie, yes, it has been driven by the coal industry and electricity generation. And I hope that, you know, I'm not talking about shutting down those jobs. I'm talking about making sure that we're creating new jobs and new opportunities. International forces will determine what happens to some of those existing products and services, but we need to be well placed to manage the risk that they might not be there, not due to anything we do as a government or a community, but due to changing demand.
Yeah, okay. Can I just mention another frustration that I've had up here, Matt, and not so much in your portfolio, but just trying to get investment in further research. And you mentioned a number of things we have to do in relation to plastics earlier. There's so much that we need to learn and to do. And one was to try and get the University of Newcastle to be, I'm going to use the term, a centre of excellence. I really want to see them invest heavily in this sort of area. And Favour Palanisamy, I just want to introduce him to you if I can, and others might be interested too. I know Sam Cross is here from Plastic Police, but Favour, seeing as you've quoted him, not unknowing, without knowing him at the stage, I'd just like to introduce Favour Palanisamy, and I think people might be fascinated that there is somebody of such a calibre up here at the University of Newcastle. Favour, are you say hi to the Minister?
Yeah. Thank you, Greg. Good evening, Minister.
Please, Professor.
I've been fascinated by your actions on environmental pollution in general, and particularly plastics. And we have contributed to your plastics plan. We have given our suggestion and comments on that. And so to give a brief, I agree with you. Greg is a good mentor. So I met Greg a few years ago, and then I mentioned in a casual coffee that I have a interest on plastics and my team working on microplastics. And he asked me, did you see something in Lake Macquarie? I said, yes. Then he said, he didn't, how about that? Let's go for a sampling. So he arranged a boat, and next week we went for a sampling, and yeah, I can see his passion, not just talking, passion on environmental pollution. So since then we had various levels of discussion in terms of not just stopping plastic pollution, also how you actually develop equally good alternative so that consumers have a choice. And one of the examples are Greg has a passion of collecting the trimmer lines around Lake Macquarie. You can always see him like bunch of trimmer lines. It's a very serious issue like that. So I was picking his brain, and eventually I was lucky to establish the largest plastic research team in Australia. And currently we have around 15 researchers, and our research reputation in such a way that out of sudden from National Academy of Science, Washington, just before coronavirus, they invited us to share our results in Washington. And so, and when we shared our results, and they were talking about different stuffs, but what they were appreciating is our research is applied. So that means end users can immediately adopt it. So in that way, Greg was greatly supportive of our vision to realize a world-class plastic research center here. And we have also established several startup industry collaborations and international collaborations. All are interested in tackling this issue. And one issue you might have, you may or may not have read last week, that 16 million micro and nanoplastic can be found in the baby bottle, the formula, baby formula. So that research was, it's
how much?
Our credit card. 16 million microplastics in baby formula feed. That comes because you are heating the formula feed in 60 degrees centigrade water, and this is published in a Nature Food journal. It's a big journal, and we were asked to comment, but it could be 1 million or it could be 1, but still it doesn't belong to our food. But the numbers are high in developed countries, less in developing countries, because their baby feeding habits are different. So the evidences are coming every day. So teacups and tea bags and everything. So these are all invisible predators. So I strongly support your vision in terms of supporting New South Wales as a world leader in plastic research. And we would like to work with you and in terms of producing plastic alternates so that consumers have a choice, because we are already comfortable in using plastic. It's cheaper and very convenient.
All right. Well, the Minister looks interested.
Professor, you had me at hello. That's great. I'm very happy about that baby formula thing as a new dad in particular. Could you send that paper to me? I'd love to read that.
I can do that, yes.
But I think Greg's going to arrange for you guys at Newcastle. But yes, I'm very keen to work with you guys. And as I said, my policy positions, these are not based on ideology. They're not based on vested interest. They're based on science. They're based on evidence. They're based on research. We see our academia, our academic community, our universities is really important. We rely heavily on the thought leadership from people like you, Professor. So as long as I'm the Minister for the Environment, rest assured that I'll be very keen to work with you and your colleagues.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just say, if I can, Matt, and to everybody, Favour was talking about my obsession with line trimmer. Okay, so whippersnipper line, I drive everybody crazy. I pick up about probably 2.5 kilos of this stuff a year. And this is when I go on my walks. Okay, so I'm going to throw a figure out there. I reckon there's about 50,000 kilometres of this stuff that's just turned into microplastics around Australia every year. Whatever is on the Bunnings wall in your local area, it's probably turned over twice a year. I don't know, but it's a lot of plastics that go out there. So Fave and I talk about this quite a bit. But we'll move on from plastics, can I? And we just go back to air quality. And Ben Ewald is here with us. Dr. Ewald is very much concerned about the impact of emissions, stack emissions on people, on our community. So Ben, could I ask you to just ask you a question? You're asking about NOx, nitrous oxide in particular, I think. So you are available?
Yeah, so my question is about the forthcoming review of the national environmental protection measures that set Australia's air quality standards. And the two main sources of NO2 that people are exposed to are what comes out of the power station stacks and what comes out of vehicle exhausts. So NO2 is a potent cause of childhood asthma.
Yeah.
I've recently done some calculations showing that about 6% of the kids with asthma in Lake Macquarie LGA, the asthma can be attributed to the NO2 coming out of the power stations. And I'd like to hear from Matt Kean what position New South Wales is taking to the COAG meeting that will set the new standards about what the annual level for NO2 should be. Certainly Doctors for the Environment Australia, the group I'm in, is proposing a 9 part per billion standard. The review conducted by the Victorian EPA was suggesting 19 on not very good scientific basis, and the current standard is set at 30. So we think that there's time for a sort of, ambitious lowering of the NO2 standard. And given that power stations and vehicles are industries that face, periods of rapid technological change in the next 10 years, it shouldn't be too difficult to achieve an ambitious reduction of nitrogen dioxide.
No, I mean, I agree with that. And as you know, I've met with the Doctors for the Environment and work closely with them. The COAG meeting you're referring to, the date hasn't been set, but I know I've got the EPA working on that advice for me. Again, we're going to go through a proper process. We'll make decisions based on the science and the evidence. We've got a very strong team of scientists in the department who will brief me, but I'll certainly be engaging with you and your colleagues, Doctors for the Environment, before the COAG.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that, Matt. I think, as far as I know, I've run out of obvious questions that I had there. I don't know if there's anybody there who's, actually it probably is. People have got plenty more questions. Was that Paul? Were you waving at me, Paul Wynn? He was too. He's frustrated there.
Can
we give Paul a gig?
Thanks, Greg. Matt, thanks for your time tonight. One of the things you mentioned was that the EPA regulate the power station ash dams quite strictly. And I guess at first blush, that would appear to be true. But the EPA don't regulate the seepage, the leachate that comes out of the ash dams. And that's most of the pollution that we've been finding is through that route, not in the actual intentional discharge, but the, I guess, unintentional seepage of the water that percolates through the dam and through the dam wall. And we found significant contamination in Crooked Creek, where the dam from Araring seeps, and into Mannering Bay, where from the Vales Point dam seeps, and substantial contamination at both sites. Can you just elaborate on is it possible for the EPA to, I guess, better regulate or better mitigate the metals coming out of that seepage?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, we do have strong standards in place for what can be discharged, but if it's leaching out into the natural environment, then that's harder to detect. We do monitoring around, potential discharge sites to see whether the levels are elevated. I'm not familiar with Crooked Creek in particular, but after this call, I'll go back to the department and ask them to investigate. If you've got some more specific examples that you'd like me to have a look at, I'll go and raise that with the department immediately.
It's all in that report we sent you, Matt.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. I'll just say, Minister, very few people would be familiar with Crooked Creek, but it's obviously it's a discharge point from the ash dam. It's not.
Greg, can I just say to Paul, so the report that he sent us has gone to the EPA. So Tracy Mackey, the head of the EPA, I asked her to get her investigative team to look into those matters. I'll chase up where our response to you is at, Paul, so I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Paul.
Thanks, Greg. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Look, everybody, we are getting to the end of this. Sorry, there was another question there. Tim, I should bring Tim Brown into this. Tim's environmental manager. You can give his title if he likes, but he's at Lake Macquarie Council. So if I could just very quickly bring Tim in, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. But Tim.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Minister, for your time. I just have one very quick clarification in your opening comments around the timing for the air quality monitor. I noted down, I just wanted to double check that I had it noted correctly. Did you say works approval end of October and then construction 4 weeks or 14 weeks?
14 weeks.
14 weeks. Thank you very much. And thanks for your time.
That's a pleasure. Thanks for what you do.
Okay, so that obviously concerned, scared Tim, but yeah, Tim and I have been talking about this. But for anyone that wants to know where this air quality monitor is going, it's actually not far from my place. It's got nothing to do with me living here. It's just that I've got this big prominence that blocks my television signal, and it's up where the Peninsula Rural Fire Service is. So it's probably the most significant prominence in the south, sitting between Araring and Bales Point. So it is a great site. It's been used in the past, Matt. It's been used by, I think it was Bales Point before it was privately owned. So it is a logical site for it, and that's been confirmed by council and EPA doing that work. Look, we are, as I say, running out of time. I've only got a couple of minutes left. I just want to thank you, Matt, for doing this. I hope everybody found it of some value. I know everybody couldn't get to ask you a specific question, but I think one of the things I'd like people to know is that you really are invested in your portfolio. I know that. I mean, I can tell everybody here tonight that I've known Matt well for a long time. We talk on a lot of issues. It's really, really hard to get your time at the moment. I know there's so many fronts that you're working on. So I really do appreciate you coming along here. And also I appreciate the fact that, well, yes, you would have had some understanding of what we're going to be talking about. You really do know the issues, and I really do appreciate that. But once again, to everybody that's here tonight, thank you for coming along. As I say, it's an hour out of your time, out of your lives. I hope that wasn't too onerous for you, but in the scheme of what you do for the environment, I know it's a fairly small amount, and I hope that listening to Matt here tonight gives you some confidence that there is somebody at the controls of energy and environment who actually really does care and is getting some things done. And I intend to keep working on him to keep doing more for our local community and for the big picture as well, across the state, country, and internationally. You're making a few forays into the federal policy, and I, for one, absolutely appreciate the fact that you're getting some bites back. It's great. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to coming up and visiting very soon regarding the air quality monitoring. And perhaps, Greg, we could do one of these forums in person also.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Thank you very much, Matt. I think it's time for us to go. It's 8 o'clock, is it not? Or 6? Oh, sorry, nearly 7 o'clock. Sorry, 7 o'clock. So once again, thank you all, and we'll sign off from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.